we'd get out there. I'd get out there and have my little spin cast rod, a little excited. I went to cast it, I dropped the spin cast rod on the bottom of the boat. Boom! Be quiet! The fish will hear you. My whole life I heard, be quiet, be quiet. So now that I'm a professional angler, when I set the hook on a fish and I get him to the boat, I'm very, not quiet! It's okay to get excited when you catch a fish. The fish aren't going to hear you. Make noise. It's okay to get excited. We're going to talk, we're going to have fun here. We've got 2 seminars. And we're going to talk about, in each one, we're going to talk about how to catch fish when the fishing's tough. We're in Ohio. Anybody know anything about tough fishing in Ohio? Fishing is tough. Bass fishing's tough. I'm from New Jersey, and we've got tough fishing there too. The state's about, I don't know, 1,000 acres big. We've got about 7.5 million people. And we have our big lake's about 2,000 acres. And when we have a bass tournament, a dock will get hit 57 times before you ever get to make a cast on it. So we have tough fishing too. But fishing is tough, right? Fishing's tough in Ohio. Why is fishing tough in Ohio? Give me one reason. Because of weather, right? How many people know what happens when the weather comes? You practice, you're getting ready for your derby, you're whacking them. You're going to catch them, right? The day before the tournament, what happens? Cold front comes through. Bluebird skies, not a cloud in the sky, high pressure, the fish stop biting. Why else is it tough in Ohio to fish? You like his answer. All right, we're going to go to somebody else. Who said that? Fishing pressure. Same thing as in Jersey, right? 8 bazillion people fishing the same crap. Why else in Ohio? Same answer. Why else? Anybody else? Why is fishing tough? Water gets dirty, right? But here's the biggest reason fishing's tough. You ready for this? Barometric pressure. I get a better answer. You ready? There's no fish. I'm giving you the mic. Come up here and do the rest of the seminar. Fishing's tough because bass are smart. Bass are smart. You believe that? Bass are smart. They got a brain. It's that big. It's like the size of a pea. Bass are smart. Do you believe that? Come on, be honest. Show of hands. How many people believe a bass, a 2-pound bass with a brain that big is smart? Come on. This is awesome. Wait a minute. Keep your hand up. 20 people out of a couple hundred think bass are smart. That's it. And for the people that didn't raise their hands, I agreed with you for a lot of years. I thought bass were stupid, right? Think about it. 2-pound bass, look at him. Look at him swimming around like an idiot out there. Look at him. His brain's that big. We're an intelligent human being, right? Had a lot of education, grew up, right? You got a brain. Your brain's about that big. My brain's probably about that big. I'm a little smarter than most people. And growing up, for a lot of years, I agreed with the other 100 people that didn't raise their hand. I thought these bass were stupid. God, they're stupid. Look at them. They're dumb. They're not smart. I believed that for a lot of years. As I was club fishing after high school, man, fish are dumb. I'm the best fisherman in that club. I was winning everything. I was #1 angler year after year. There was 5 guys in the club, that's it. And I thought bass were stupid. I really did. Until one day, something really interesting happened. I got this little pond right around my house, and I would go to it just to watch fish in their environment. You know what I mean? Did you ever do that, just to get out and just watch them? Watch what they're doing, watch how they're behaving, study them in their environment. I used to love to do that. And one day I went to my little lake called Palatine Lake, and I got out there, and it was a fall day, and I'd be watching these fish, just watching them. Man, look at these dumb bass swimming around. And all of a sudden, something happened. There's this big lay-down tree on this one area that I always go to and fish. Just a giant oak tree, and it's fallen in, it's laying in the water. And I got out there, and I'm just watching, looking around, and I see a squirrel. It's about that big. It's a little red squirrel. Man, that thing was hopping down that tree, going down, hopping around. Like, it's kind of interesting. And there was an acorn. It's a little nut on the end of that tree. That squirrel went down there, and he went to get that acorn off of that tree, and all of a sudden, about a 5 or 6 pounder, which is a big bass in Jersey, right? Came up and just goes, whoa! and eats that squirrel right off a tree. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I had never, in my whole life of fishing, I never saw anything like that. I saw them eat crawfish and bluegill and little mice, but never a squirrel. And I was thinking, oh my gosh. And even at that point, I said to myself, man, these fish are stupid. And just when I thought that, that 5 or 6 pounder jumped up on the end of that tree and put that nut right back on that branch. That really happened. I swear to you. It did. No, it didn't. But I make that point joking around. They're running from me. Because fishing's tough, right? Fishing is tough. And so we've got 2 seminars, and we're going to talk about, in this little box right here, how many people have ever heard me talk about something called a panic box? Right? In this little box, which I call my panic box, we're going to talk about as many of these as we can. There's about 8 of them in here. Things to do when the fishing gets tough. When it's terrible, man. When you can't get a bite, when you've got your favorite Kevin Van Dam spinnerbait, you're throwing it out there, and you've got your Denny Bauer big black and blue half-ounce jig, and you're throwing it out there. When they won't hit anything, we've got 8 little tricks in here that we can make these smart fish bite, okay? So we're going to talk about these. We're just going to keep one at a time. We're going to go through them. We're going to start, and by the way, I call it the panic box. And all these techniques I'm going to talk about are finesse techniques, right? Finesse fishing. Little fairy wand, little sissy rod, right? How many people fish a spinning rod and light line? Raise their hand. You have to. You live in Ohio. And this is what we're going to use. We're going to use finesse fishing to get these fish that won't bite those big baits. We're going to get them to bite this little stuff, okay? Talk about finesse fishing. So we're going to start one of my favorite, which is a technique called shaky head. How many people have heard of shaky head fishing? Raise your hand. Shaky head fishing, right? Shaky head fishing. Now I know you've heard a lot about it recently. Shaky head fishing new? Is it a new technique or is it an old technique? Shaky head fishing, what do you think? You think it's a new technique? Everybody thinks it's a new technique because you've heard so much about it recently. But it's not a new technique, right? Think about shaky head. All shaky heading is, it's a jig head, the little worm on it. Jig worming, right? How old's jig worming? Jig worming's been around forever, right? Remember Al Linder talking about jig worming like 30 years ago? It's critical, right? So it's an old technique that's kind of come back into style, the shaky head. All right, I want to ask everybody a question. You got to be honest with me. You ready? How many people in the room back in the day wore bell-bottom jeans? Be honest. Raise your hand. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay. How many? Bell-bottoms? Okay. All right, here's another one. How many people, a little closer to my age, how many people back in the day wore parachute pants? Raise your hand. You wore parachute pants? Man, that's embarrassing, isn't it? You'd walk in a room, you'd be like, they'd hear you coming from a mile away. It's unbelievable. But old techniques come back into style again, right? And that's what happened with the shaky head. So let's talk about the components, and then we're going to watch it in this tank, and we're going to watch how it's different than regular Texas worm fishing, right? And Texas worm fishing, Wu talked about it, Denny Brower with his jig, all those things catch fish, and they're good techniques. But man, when fishing sucks, this finesse stuff, this little shaky head, and all these other baits we're going to talk about are going to catch them, okay? So let's look at the components. Let's start with the head. Ready? It's a jig head. That's all it is a jig head. That's all you need. There's a lot of them on the market, right? It's a jig head from a 1/16 of an ounce all the way up to about 1/4 of an ounce. Just the jig head. And there's a lot of good ones on the market. Some have a straight shank hook. Some have a spring. Some have a little peg. They're all good. The one that I like right here has an offset hook on it, right? How many people remember the old slider heads by Charlie Brewer? Right? That style head. It's got an offset hook. This particular head right here is by a company called True Tungsten. It's called an Ike head. It's got an offset hook, but it's made out of tungsten, which is key. How many people use tungsten now instead of lead? A bunch of you, right? If you go right over here to this hooker's thing right over here, they got all this tungsten material. It's the deal. Tungsten is 100% better than lead. It is, right? Why is it better than lead? Why is tungsten better than lead? Smaller and heavier, right? More feel. What else? Better for the environment, right? A lot of good reasons for tungsten. The biggest one is it's harder. It's more dense, right? So what that means, if you were to throw a lead head jig out there, right? Throw that lead head jig out there, and you drag it along the bottom. Lead's soft. Lead's spongy, right? As you drag it, it wants to like just kind of mush into the bottom. It's real spongy. Look at him, look at him. It's only a lead head, brother. That's it. Come on. Come on. You're not supposed to bite yet. I paid him 20 bucks to bite when the worm was on there. But lead's spongy, but not tungsten. Tungsten's dense, it's hard, right? So when you throw tungsten out there, and now you're dragging that tungsten on the bottom, it's dense, and you feel every little pebble. You feel every little piece of gravel. Every little thing on the bottom you feel. And you feel the bites better. And you're working that bait, and you feel that fish come up behind it, and he sucks it in, and you go, whack! You jam him. But tungsten's better than lead, okay? So buy any jig head you like, especially the ones with the offset hook. They're the deal. Because the offset hook is going to let us Texas rig the shaky head, right? That's what we want to do. We want to get this bait, we want it Texas rigged, and we want to throw this little thing right in the same places that we throw a jig or a spinnerbait or a crankbait. How does Britney Spears do this and not have static? We'll put it lower. Everybody still hear me? Okay. All right, so we got the head. We got a lead head or a tungsten head jig with an offset hook. The next thing we're going to get to is we're going to get to the worm. If you walk around the floor out here, there's how many styles of worms? How many? 8 bazillion? That's right. 8 bazillion style of worms that you can buy. But for shaky head, and I just want you to buy this one style of worm, no matter what brand you buy. You ready? Here it goes. A straight tail worm, a little 4 or 6 inch straight tail worm, kind of long, thin, little bulbous, pointy tail. But I want you to buy one that has one special feature on it. And here it goes, right here. That side, the top of it's round, right? It's got some ribs. What's the bottom look like on that worm? It's flat, okay? I want you to pick a straight tail worm, little bulbous tail, but make sure it has a flat bottom to it. One with the flat side. Bunches of good ones on the market. This is one by Berkeley. It's called a power shaky worm, right? There's other good ones. Zoom has a good one. So there we go. We've got our tungsten jig head. We've got our little 4 or 6 inch straight tail worm. Nothing complicated yet, right? Now we're going to put this worm on this jig head. I'm going to get up there in that fully rigged bass boat right there. And we're going to watch why this thing catches fish when regular baits don't. When regular Texas rigs or big jigs or big spinnerbaits won't. We're going to watch how this catches them, okay? All right, so we've got our jig head. We've got our little worm. First thing I want you to do is I want you to get that worm. I want you to get about 1/8 of an inch to about 1/4 inch of the head of that worm. I want you to bite it right off. Ready? Oh, God! It's horrible. You want to try? No. Okay. I didn't think so. Look, he's going to come on in. Man, that's a good bait.